Dear students, welcome to the class of Indian economy. Today we are going to discuss the last topic in the first part of the second unit, that is 5-year plans. And we'll be discussing what is the importance of 5-year plan, what is the objective of 5-year plan, and when 5-year plans were started. So the 5-year plans were a strategic economic tool used by India and the Planning Commission, and its sole purpose was to prepare a plan for our country so that the problems, economic problems of the country can be tackled properly. So, with this objective, 5-year plans were initiated in the year 1950s. So if you see that it was set up in 1950, what are the objectives? There are five main objectives of 5-year plans which were implemented in India. The first, economic growth. We have already discussed that at the time of independence, economic growth was one of the challenges of the Indian economy, and we were struggling to find economic pace. And in order to achieve that economic pace, we wanted economic growth. So one of the objectives of the 5-year plans were to have a strategy in order to achieve economic growth. The second objective of the 5-year plan were economic equity and social justice. You know, equality was not disparities were there on the basis of different on the basis of people of different classes and occupation also. So it was required to create a sense of equality in that particular uh, in the country, and because of that we initiated this process of inviting uh, specialized people and economists and policy makers to come and talk about and prepare a plan so that there is more economic equity, means distribution of the wealth and social justice. The third objective of the 5-year plan was full employment, which basically meant that because our country is a labor intensive country, we where our labor outnumbers the capital and we have abundance of labor. The issue, this benefit of having abundance of labor is also a problem for us, because then we have, it is difficult for us to get employment of not just people but also of resources. If you see the statistics starting from 1950, we have progressed in utilizing, in fully utilizing or in better utilizing our resources, including the human resource as well as the other resource, for example land. The barren land and the unutilized land in our country starting from independence was quite high, but now it is getting reduced as we are consuming, as we are now utilizing more and more land for infrastructure development, agriculture, etc. So that was the third objective of the 5-year plan, that is full employment. The fourth objective of the 5-year plan was economic self-reliance. That is, the people should be, their standard of living should go up, and they should also get opportunity to promote their own businesses, means entrepreneurial and self-employment should be one of the options. Means the whole population or a huge section of the population should not be dependent on other businesses. If they have a mental acumen, if they can get some finances, if they have their own family business, they should be able to get self-employment and be self-reliance. And this is not just about people, it is also about the economy being self-reliant economy. So it means that we should have our own resources, we should be able to utilize our resources so that we are able to have reliance to whatever extent we have. For example, we do not have full reliance with respect to oil consumption, we have to purchase from the international market, that's fine. But we have human resource now. Even if when we have human resource, if suppose we have to hire people from outside of the country, that is something which is an anomaly. So that should not happen. So in order to avoid that kind of scenario, economic self-reliance was one of the objectives of the 5-year plans in India. And fifth one was the modernization. The modernization of the economy as well of the people. You know, digitization, banking, warehousing, all this comes under modernization. Now, if you see from 1956, the number of warehouses have gone up. The number of land, the average hectare of land which is where the output is produced with the use of machines has gone up. If you see the unbanked people, they have gone down, means most of the people are now into the banking sector. So modernization has also been possible because of these 5-year plans. Therefore, these were the 5 objectives of 5-year plans, and these 5-year plans separately had some targets. So the first 5-year plan was from 1951 to 1956. It focused on agricultural development. It was also its target was to minimize inflation. The second 5-year plan was from 1956 to 61, 1956 to 1961, and the focus was on the capital goods. The Because I told you that we were an economy based on labor, the abundance of labor, but capital was one of the problems. So the focus was shifted towards capital goods like iron, steel, chemicals, etc., and the machine building industry. The third 5-year plan from 1961 to 66, it focused primarily, because at that time some turmoil was going on. It focused again on agriculture and rural development. These two things were focused in that particular discussion. And because at that time there was Indo-China War in 1961 and 1962, and Indo-Pak War in 1965, 1966, there was also famine in our country. So that was also taken up to cover that particular portion. Then we had 3 annual plans because of some problems, because of the, so we had 3 annual plans, that is 1966, 1966 to 1969. 3 annual plans were there, and the objective was to control inflation and control recession. That was the main plan, and that's why it is also known as Plan Holiday, because of some issues. Then we started again with the fourth 5-year plan in 1969 to 1974. That was the time, and the objective primarily was growth with stability and progressive achievement of self-reliance. So we were focusing on growth, economic growth with stability. Stability means if we reach suppose 5% economic growth, now we have two aims. One is to maintain 5%, and again the second one is to also try to improve this 5%. But we should always be skeptical of not going below 5%. And self-reliance, progressive achievement of self-reliance means, like for example, our food security should go up. Whatever resources we have which are underutilized should be utilized with proper machines, capital, and infrastructure. The fifth 5-year plan of India was from 1974 to 1979. There were two main objectives of this plan: removal of property and attainment of self-reliance. And the second was that some social indicators were also targeted, like minimum needs like housing, drinking water, primary education, etc. Then again from 1978 to 19, let me check. Okay, 1978 to 1980, we had the rolling plan. And this plan also, if you see, it focused on achieving the previous year targets, because that was important. So that was one of the things which were important to focus on previous year plans. Then the sixth 5-year plan of India was from 1980 to 85, and the main focus was rural development, because already we were targeting economic growth, modernization, agriculture productivity, self-reliance, these social indicators. Now focus came on to rural development, because now the growth patterns were spreading into the country. Now what was not responding properly was the rural sectors. So rural development was one of the objectives in the sixth 5-year plan of India. The seventh 5-year plan of India from 1985 to 1990, just before the liberalization period, we had a reasonable economic growth rate of 5.4% in the sixth plan. So that was the average, and because of that, here we started focusing on rapid production of food grains with an increase in employment and overall productivity. we can target productivity only when we have output. If we do not have output, then we cannot talk about productivity. So because we had in the sixth 5-year plan achieved a very substantial amount of economic growth, then we started thinking about productivity, not just the output. Then we had the eighth 5-year plan from 1992 to 97, and the objective of the eighth 5-year plan was and the objective of the 5-year plan from 1992 to 1997, which was the eighth plan, was to identify the different versions of the different versions in order to achieve economic growth. And here they, because already the Indian economy had opened up in 1991, there was some crisis going on into the country with respect to foreign reserves and all those kind of things. So one of the target was to help the economy to move smoothly in this transforming period, which meant that because we were liberalizing in 1991, the objective was that from 1991, whatever changes had happened, because of that, we should be able to transform ourselves uh, in this kind of circumstances. So that was only the objective of dynamism and transforming the economy, or smoothly passing the economy through this stage where Indian economy was going from a closed economy to open economy. The ninth 5-year plan was 1997 and 19 to 2002, which witnessed the Southeast Asian financial crisis of 1996-97. What this crisis was: the Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei. These countries were they were witnessing a huge amount of investment into their countries from the world. But what happened in 1996-97, that one day, most of the multinational corporation and the foreign investment, which was invested in the Southeast Asian countries of Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, within fortnight, all these multinational corporation and the foreign investment went back to their countries. Now, this was possible because their current account was fully convertible, and because their capital account was fully convertible, and this because of that there was a huge economic crisis, financial crisis in Southeast Asian country. And India realized that fiscal norms are very important, because if you want to protect your economy, like in India also, all over the world people were investing. But in India, the benefit was India had at that time, and still India has not fully converted its capital account. Its capital account is not fully convertible, which means that if an American invests in India through the capital account, uh, and if it wants to take his or her investment back within 10 or 15 days or 1 month, it has to go through a government route. It cannot happen. It's not like just a Myntra transaction that if you cancel the product, it will come back to your account. No, you then have to have a government approval, which means that government will stop the funds to go out of the economy. So that was the case. So in ninth 5-year plan, we started focusing on the fiscal measures. And apart from fiscal measure, one of the terms which was introduced was basic minimum services for the people. And therefore, safe drinking water, primary health service, universalization of primary education, public housing assistance, nutritional support, connectivity, streamlining public distribution system, all these things were targeted by under the ninth 5-year plan. The 10th 5-year plan was from 2002 to 2007. And this 10th 5-year plan focused on some specific things like per capita income should double in the next 10 years. There should be higher growth rate, and it should also transform into quality of the people. Monitorable target should be there, which should be in numeric terms, so that we can see, okay, the progress is going on. Consideration of government as a factor of development, policy, industrial reforms, agriculture sector should be given emphasis, and emphasis on social sector indicators like health, education, mortality, etc. The 11th 5-year plan uh, was from 2007 to 2012, and the title of the 11th plan was toward faster and more inclusive growth. And it targeted that there should be a growth rate of around 7.5 to 9%. and reducing poverty, increasing employment. So lots of subjective targets were there in the 11th five-year plan. And finally, we had this 12th five-year plan, which was stopped in between because in 2015 we introduced the Niti Aayog. But still, at that time, because it was prepared, these were the targets of the 12th five-year plan, like a growth rate of 9%, average growth rate, inflation should not be there, there should be development activities, like these kind of things were there. So this is all about 5-year plans. The extension of the 5-year plans, if we go back to our civil syllabus, we will find that in extension to the 5-year plan, if you see, this is the last topic in unit 2 first portion, that is 5-year plans and overview. Now we will directly go to Niti Aayog, which is the extension of the 5-year plan. So starting from 2015, the government decided not to continue with the 5-year plan. And now we have another organization, Niti Aayog, instead of the planning commission who used to prepare the 5-year plans. Niti Aayog now presents its reports, its guidelines, its projects, and advises government on how the economy should move on. So if you see the Niti Aayog, you can directly read Niti Aayog was formed in 2015. Government announced its formation on January 1, 2015 because of the approval of the government. It is a policy think tank institute of Government of India, fully funded by Government of India. And the objective of Niti, policy Ayog. Okay. So in English, if you translate Niti Ayog, it will be the policy organization. But Niti has a full form also. So we should, this Niti Ayog was used in order to promote the transforming affairs of India. That's why its full title is National Institute for Transforming India. But it is doing similar job what Planning Commission used to do. But it is more open type of organization. Means in this organization, only government people are not there. They are also the private sector people. Their students are also contributing to Niti Aayog. We also have scholars also contributing to Niti Aayog, etc. So its structure is quite different from the Planning Commission. So if you see the objectives of the Niti Aayog, inclusion, these are the few objectives of Niti Aayog, specific objectives, but more or less it is same, like targeting developmental activities, national development, for improving policies for the people, inclusive growth. These objectives remain same. The reason is because these are never ending objectives, and that's why these objectives will always remain. If we reach one benchmark, then we then start focusing on another benchmark. But still, if you see, want to see, for example, the first objective, extend and deepen NITI's institutional capability for an ecosystem of evidence-based policy research. What is this is important. What is this evidence-based policy research? Now, evidence-based policy is lacking, was lacking, and still it is lacking in our country. The reason is for evidence-based policy, you need people who are well acquainted with evidences, how to find evidences, how to devise a policy on the basis of evidences. And people do not have that knowledge, that training to go with evidence-based policy. So we are lacking in terms of number of economists which we require. We are not used to the evidence-based sciences, for example, the data science, econometrics, statistics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. This we are lacking in. And because of that, it is rightly pointed out that the objective is to have evidence-based policy research. What is evidence? Evidence is proper inquiry and then checking those inquiries. So I'll give you an example. What is an evidence and what is not. So when in the United States of America, the when in the cars, safety belt was introduced for the drivers. Uh, and you can respond to that. What do you think? The number of accidents would have gone up or down? Yes. Anybody? Yes, Himanshu, would you like to answer? Shikhar, would you like to answer? Shikhar, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What do you think? When in United States of America, for the first time, safety belts in the cars were introduced. What is your opinion? What would have happened to the number of accidents after this introduction of safety belts?
I don't think.
Hmm? Means it would have gone up or down.
I think it gone up.
Why?
So I don't have any reason.
Okay, so this is the right answer statistically. That means generally people have an idea that if something for safety is introduced, it will have a positive impact. But it is not necessarily true, which happened in the case of United States of America. When for the first time, safety belts were introduced in the car, instead of the number of cases of accidents going down, it went up. And the reason was that people become more careless because of the introduction of the safety belt. So they started driving at double the speed on which they used to drive. So because of that, what happened? Because of that, the number of cases in the United States of America after the introduction of safety belts, it started increasing for initially. Then again, it started declining. So the my point is that this is known as evidence. You try to check out what actually is happening, and then starting and devising a policy on the basis of that. So this is the first. Second objective is to enable such institutions and stakeholders to fulfill their role in transformative policy reform for achieving sustainable and more inclusive development. I told you these terms will go on coming. It will be repetitive: inclusive development, sustainable goals, sustainable development, uh, uh, introduction of technology, and these. So these are all the objectives you can see. Then what are the functions of Niti Aayog? The functions of the Niti Aayog, these are the functions of the Niti Aayog. I have already put all this content into the sheets. All the links are there, so you can go. Lots of functions are there, but in brief I would like to tell you the functions are to connect all the stakeholders, all the people who are important for forming a policy, to come together, devise a policy, identify what are the lacunas in the policy, and then and then suggest the government that this policy should be implemented or it should not be implemented. If implemented, how it should be implemented. If it should not be implemented, what alternatives are available. Very briefly, this is the crux of the Niti Aayog. It also tries to build a gap between the center and the states. So it collaborates with states, it also collaborates with center. So together it tried to come up with a policy which is in line, which is in line, or which is according to the interest of both the center and the state. Because at times we see that there is a tussle between center and state with respect to policy implementation. And what happens when there is tussle between with respect to policy implementation? Then policy, either it is not implemented, or even if it is implemented, it is poorly implemented, which means wastage of the funds of the government, which also means that efficiency will not be achieved in that policy. So therefore it is very important that center and the state should work in tandem, and that job is performed by Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is also uh, coming up with new issues which are required for the future of India. Like for example, the digitalization of the economy. Like for example, artificial implementation of artificial intelligence in the economy. Like for example, in schools, you see the Atal tinkering labs Atal is taken from Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the former Prime Minister of India. So Atal tinkering lab is a concept which is now introduced by Niti Aayog into the schools, where schools can have incubation centers for the children, where the children can think about entrepreneurial ventures. So this has been implemented by Niti Aayog through central government. So this is what is very important, that Niti Aayog is trying to transform India, or it is trying to think what will be the future of India and then trying to devise policies with respect to that. Okay. So this is sufficient about Niti Aayog. We have discussed, if we go to our syllabus, we had the structure, objectives, working of Niti Aayog. I have given in all the sheets, you can discuss about it. And then we will talk about regional disparities. What are regional disparities? So with respect to, okay, up till now, if you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the regional disparities. Any question, anybody? Anyone, if you would like to ask any question? Is it clear to everybody, whatever we are discussing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we will move on to the regional disparities. Regional disparities means that there are several indicators, economic indicators, social indicators, and these indicators give different results at different regions. For example, in one region, the literacy can be 95%, in another region, it can be 90%. What we want is, we want that there should be least regional disparity. It means that we want that the literacy rate of which, whatever is the average of India, suppose the average of India is 95, then most of the countries should, most of the states should have, or regions should have the same literacy rate. So we need to minimize the differences of between the literacy rate for two states. That is what we want to minimize. This is known as minimization of regional disparities. Why regional disparity is a problem? Regional disparity is a problem because if not properly tackled, it collapses the whole policy. For example, if we are devising a policy, say for example, for New Delhi. Now, New Delhi social indicators, economic indicators are quite promising, and there is a huge difference between the indicators of New Delhi and indicators of, say for example, Western Uttar Pradesh. Now, what will happen is, suppose the literacy rate there is 95% and here it is 80%. Now, whatever policy we implement for New Delhi, because they are already the literacy rate is high, and people who will migrate from Western Uttar Pradesh to New Delhi, they will not be able to compete over there. And therefore, this will quite a frustrating situation. So we want to minimize this regional disparity. Also, if that policy working in New Delhi, it will not work in Western Uttar Pradesh because of the huge difference in the literacy rate. Therefore, it's not it will get failed, and therefore what we need to do is, first we need to minimize this regional disparity. When we'll be able to minimize this regional disparity, then it will be easier for us to implement a policy and its results will be quite beneficial, and across the country it will be quite similar. So therefore it is important. On regional disparities in Indian economic development, I have already shared. If you go to the note sheet, I will just show you by sharing the screen with you. So if you see that this kind of document, I have already provided this document where all the links are given for the notes, including Niti Aayog, everything is given. So if you go to the regional disparity, the first thing in regional disparity will open for you this particular research and this particular document, that is regional disparities in Indian economic development. Here, if you read the introduction, you'll find what is regional disparity, and particularly this particular piece of literature has taken into consideration the disparities between Orissa, Bihar, Jharkhand, etc. And it has come up with disparities in most of the countries. So, for example, they are forward states. We have developing states of forward state. Andhra Pradesh is developing, Gujarat, Haryana, Kerala, Maharashtra, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal. And if you see the statistics of literacy rate, 67, 79, infant mortality rate, and other things are there. Population below poverty line. Now, what are the backward states in India? Assam, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh. These are the backward states. So if you see the forward state, the population below poverty line, the maximum in the forward stage is 26.7% for West Bengal. Okay, 26.7% people live below poverty line in West Bengal, which is considered to be a forward state. But if you see the backward state, maximum percentage of people living below poverty line, if you see, it is 53.5% in Bihar. 53.1. Can you imagine? More than 50% of the people in Bihar are below poverty line. This is the condition. This is known as regional disparity. And not just this indicator, if you see the literacy rate, uh, it is in forward state, it is highest in Kerala with 93.9%. 93.9%. And in backward state, the highest literacy rate is 73.45%, which is in Odisha. Okay. So you see, in UP it is 69%. And the lowest in the forward states, lowest literacy rate in the forward states is 67.6 in Andhra, which is in which UP is more than that. UP and Rajasthan are above than that, 69 and 67. But there are other indicators also. Infant mortality rate, you see, it's 58, 60, it's quite high. So it's that kind of problem. Okay, and all India, if you see, you have all India figures. If you see all India figures, 74. 29.9 is the all India figure for the number of people below poverty line. And in Bihar, it is 53.5%. So these are known as the regional disparities. So you should go through all this, the whole research, so that you can identify the per capita domestic product output. If you see again forward state, their output is so high. The growth rate, if you see the growth rate of the forwarding states, if you see Andhra Pradesh 7%, 8%, Gujarat, Haryana 7%, Kerala 7.8%, Maharashtra 7.9%, Punjab 4.8%, Tamil Nadu 8.8%, and then West Bengal 6.2%. But for all the backward states except Bihar, you see the growth rates is 4%, 4 to 5%. So these things are known as the regional disparities, and we need to give due consideration. So you all go all through these contents, so that you'll be getting all the information related to regional disparities. So in today's class, we have completed up till now till regional disparities. Tomorrow we have a class. So tomorrow's class. Tomorrow is our class at 8:55. In tomorrow's class, I will complete the syllabus by discussing poverty and inflation. And for you, there is announcement that now you all should start preparing your assignment. From my portion, you can select any topic, prepare an assignment between 10 to 15 pages, and then I will share with you the Google Classroom, and then upload the syllabus over there, assignment over there. Clear to everybody?
तो कौन सी यूनिट में से करनी है आपका असाइनमेंट?
Just hold on. Yes. Any question?
सर किस यूनिट में से करना है असाइनमेंट?
What are the units which I am teaching? बताइए. Unit 1 and Unit 2. I am teaching Unit 1 and Unit 2. So you can select any one or any two. It's up to you. Any one or any two topics from Unit 1 or Unit 2. Prepare your assignment of 10 to 15 pages. Assignment should be handwritten. Okay. And then you have to submit it in the Google Classroom. And hard copy, you have to retain it. And when everything opens up, then you have to submit the hard copy. Is it clear?
So Google Classroom में
Google Classroom ID, sir.
That I will post in the WhatsApp group after today only. Okay. Meanwhile, you start preparing and just share everything with the students. I will also share on the WhatsApp group all the details. Okay.
So 10 to 15 pages बहुत हो जाएंगे.
Okay. Take it 8 to 12 pages. No, 10 तो ठीक है. 10 to 12 कर लो. 10 to 12 कर लो. नहीं तो 10 to 15 का है. मैंने कोई लिखते किसी की हैंडराइटिंग बड़ी होती है.